we go. Ah, ha 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 ha. It connected, ladies and gentlemen. Hi, everyone. Now, before I really get going, I want to make sure you're all hearing me. I see Diane, Ruth, Shalom. Hi, Michelle, bonjour. Hey, Sarah, Sandra. So we're all here. We're all here because there's Tara. And we are having lunch with Tara's daughter today, too. So we are in sunny, warm Winnipeg, the hottest city in southern Manitoba. This is officially, they say, the coldest city in the world, over 500,000 people. I know there's damn lies and statistics, and let me share with everyone, I have been coming to Winnipeg for years. Everyone's saying hi to you, Tara. See that? Hello. Sandra was with me the other day. She's from Australia. And she's flying home today, I think. However, this is my first time ever in Winnipeg without snow. And it's gorgeous. I got in about midnight last night. Hey, salut, Nat. And I'm thrilled to be here. And the stream has clicked on. No heavy job. I'm in shorts, Diane. And if I look a little pasty, I actually have sunscreen on. Hey, Diane. Ciao from Florida. Hey, there is Little Italy here, and the last time I was here with Tara, we went for lunch in Little Italy, and I honestly did not know there was a Little Italy, and it's lovely. It's about 3 blocks, I think, isn't it?
Yeah. A little bit more.
A little bit more, yeah, it was really nice. So it's up towards the zoo. So we're going to take you out for a lovely walk here. I'm more or less going to take you for the walk. Let me quickly tell you what I'm doing here. I'm really here for sort of a promotion trip. They call them FAM trips, about the Human Rights Museum. So obviously I volunteered to do this immediately when they asked me, because I believe so much in this mandate. And I'm staying at the Fort Garry, so I'm going to tell you about that because it's one of my favorite hotels in all of Canada. It's haunted, but I haven't heard any ghosts. I've heard the same number of ghosts I've heard elsewhere in the world. But to each their own. But we're in downtown Winnipeg. But just to start, well, really, I have to show you, it's probably my favorite mural in the country, to be honest. By the way, if Merle's here, someone told me to send me an email the other day, someone named Merle, and I didn't get it. But right there is the Manitoba Unions building. I don't want to stand too close to the road because there's quite a lot of noise traffic. Can I just check that everyone's hearing me okay? I can put in my headphones if I need to, but I want you to be able to hear Tara as well. But if you're having any trouble with noise, let me know and I'll put in the headphones. But this mural over here said, "Unions make work better." Now, I love that old saying that says, if you like your weekend, thank the union. In fact, I need to chat with Alex down in Melbourne about this. There's a statue, great, Nat. There's a statue in Melbourne that is a monument to the person who achieved the 8-hour workday. Those are the sort of statues we need in life. You know, Tara and I, just before we started, we were talking about, it's quite a heavy topic, but how many people we've lost in the last, month in your case, but last year. You know, you go one go here, and no one lies on their deathbed saying, I should have worked more. I think I need to remind myself that.
Yes.
But this monument up here is commemorating the year of 1919. Now, we're going to get back into some of the Indigenous history and some of the founding history. Please let us acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory here. And this is also the birthplace, really, of the Métis Nation. So we have to talk about that as we head down to the Forks. I've been so excited to take you out. Look at this blue sky day. But this is commemorating 1919. So one of the seminal moments in the history of this city was 1914. Quick, what major event changed Winnipeg forever in 1914? Wait to see what everyone guesses. What event started in 1914 that changed Winnipeg forever? Oh, I think the chat's slow. If the chat is coming in too slow, I always expect, thank you, Diane. Everyone says World War I. Well, the answer, in fact, is not World War I, not World War II. The answer is the completion of the Panama Canal. That's what changes Winnipeg forever. This was the junction point around the world. This is why the sun never set on the British Empire, because the trains came across Canada, 9 days from Montreal all the way to Vancouver. Then you'd get on the Empress and sail over to Hong Kong and so forth. This was the transit route across this continent. The Panama Canal opens and Winnipeg begins to decline as a city. And that's why you have this really random mix of fabulous sort of empire architecture, and the sort of Chicago of the North, as they called it. And then it went stale. Well, in 1919, the soldiers come back from World War I. They get on the trains from Halifax and Montreal and Toronto, and they come out here. They have no work, no homes. Winter is awful, and they unite together and have this massive Winnipeg general strike. This is famously where Tommy Douglas was on top of a roof watching down. He's the father. Hey, Kathy. Hey, salut, Kathy. And he was the father of public health care in Canada, becomes Premier of Saskatchewan. So this monument out here tells us a story of what became a much more modern, inclusive society in this country. Early colonial Canada was not a nice place, but it was these people coming home that led to first the establishment of unemployment insurance. That was the first step of the role of government in terms of people's lives in this country. Now, again, we can all debate one way or another where one stands on that, but I think most of us are pretty happy with healthcare and housing and a lack of corruption. So all that noted, we are down below. We're not going to even be able to show you particularly well because we're so close to it, but some of you will remember from last winter, we are down at the Fort Garry Hotel. Built from 1911 to 1913. It is the only chateau-esque building in this entire province, I believe. It is a fabulous hotel, except for the haunted room. it's a phantom room, but it is lovely. And the Garry itself, of course, is Grand Trunk Railway days. Of course, this country is defined by these grand hotels. Sorry, it's a little noisy down by the road, but we're gonna get through the train station to where it's quiet again, so I won't put in my headphones for the minute. But I just want to take everyone up and just show you the plaque at the front here. Just give you a sense of this historic hotel. So there we are at the Garry. Just a gorgeous hotel. You want to stay in the haunted room? Yes, and it is neat to see. But it is lovely. And I will be staying here the next few nights with my group, which is pretty lucky because it feels like a Fairmont, except the ceilings are higher in it, which is really nice. And of course, when all of this was built, remember, we are in a city. Well, you'll remember last winter when Tara and I were out at the polar bears and it was about minus 37 or something. And I have a little video somewhere of being outside the train station at minus 40 wind chill. But let's go. We're on Broadway. Broadway actually goes through Union Station, but we're going to loop around back here. And I just find so much of this interesting. Big, of course, Main Street up above. We're down by the Assiniboine River, but the history of colonial Winnipeg is fascinating. Even though we really are in the center of southern Canada, and we're pretty much the center of the continent here. Really why this matters is this is, in every colonial sense, the birth of Western Canada as we know it. Just let this truck go by and then we can cut across the street there. And that's because you had the French came inland. Remember, Etienne Brûlé established what became Toronto as a trading fort. And then several other traders, French fur traders, came inland and established the Rouge Fort out here, really to try and cut off the Hudson's Bay Company. Now, the Hudson's Bay Company had its headquarters up at York Factory, but you had three competing stories that came through here. But this was Fort Garry itself here. And again, I'll bounce around because there's three different bits of history. But as we talk around Fort Garry was originally a Northwest Company fort. I don't know if this one's in English. Oh, it is. There we go. There we go. So the road formerly part of a cart trail, also known as the Carleton, Saskatchewan, the Fort Elise Trail, which extended 1,400 kilometers between Fort Garry and Fort Edmonton. Now, the main fort west of here during the fur trade was actually Rocky Mountain House. But out here, this was the basis of the birth of really the movement inland, because otherwise you had French fur traders who weren't given license by the Viceroy of New France. And then they went and they approached the British, who established out of Boston, which was still British at the time, established the Hudson's Bay Company. And in response to that, the Northwest Company, born out of Montreal, came west and established all these different forts. The French then, of course, were effectively removed, but not before a new nation was born. Can I just check you're all there, everyone? I haven't seen any chat go up for a little while. I'm showing full reception. See that? It's just kind of, hopefully you're all here. Yeah, great. Okay. So I think maybe the chat's just gone a little slow. So they establish Fort Garry out here as a trading fort. Now, two other things were happening in the middle of all of that. So as the fur trade, that's great, Ruth, as the fur trade moved inland, the owners became principally Scottish, hence the Golden Square Mile in Montreal. But the workers were French-Canadian, they were les voyageurs. And the voyageurs came out here, they paddled all the way up Lake Superior and then up into the Forks area, which is exactly where we're going walking. They would trade, but they were all men. What happens when all men come out to a place like this? Well, they meet lovely young women and they would have babies, but the men didn't get paid unless they went back to Montreal. And so they went away, and born out here in the prairies, right out here, was a truly Turtle Island nation, a true North American nation, and that is the Métis Nation. Now, there are Métis out on the West Coast as well. Métis really just means mixed peoples. But that was the birth of a nation that is still considered a nation, principally French-speaking, although here is the language of Michif was spoken here, just like Chinook jargon further west. These were trade languages. See that? The Forks here. Because to understand the history of Turtle Island or this continent, you have to think in terms of travel, first by river, then by train, then by car, and then by plane. And I've beaten that into my kid so much he knows that history really well. But here's Upper Fort Garry. Now, this is very significant as well, where I live further west from here, because I talk so often about the Palliser expedition. They raise 5,000 pounds from Fort Garry, they move west, and they plot the route out along the Bow River all the way to the coast. And that, of course, is why Banff and why the trains came through where they do. And the trains all met here. There is Louis Riel. Louis Riel was the Métis leader, who, a very, very complicated person to talk about, but it was Canada's first war as a nation, the Northwest Rebellion, when they sent troops out here and hung him publicly. And in fact, I was here during the Festival des Voyageurs, which of course is now called Louis Riel Day here in Manitoba. So modern Winnipeg, Greater Winnipeg's not 1 million people. It's the 7th largest city in Canada, but it has indisputably the largest urban Indigenous population. About 13 or 14% of the population mixed between Métis and First Nations. I just want to come show you this plaque. They preserved this old gate here from the fort, but Fort Rouge goes back to 1738. In terms of this part of the world, that is some pretty old history, but we say that where we're walking to through the train station has been a meeting place for over 1,000 years for Indigenous people. And we know that because of treaties signed between Indigenous groups. So really we're just talking about colonial history here. So backing up to this, actually I can give you one nice view of this if everyone's taking good postcards here. So here's Upper Fort Garry Provincial Park. Such a treat to have all of these plaques up here. I will be taking people, a group of about 42, on a walking tour around here tomorrow. And it's so lovely because I can stop at a place and let them read it. But it is interesting. Saying by 1870, there were about 12,000 people living here. And this is all run by provincial parks. 42 cents. That's pretty typical for me on a tour. Now, people are very well behaved in Winnipeg. They stand dutifully on the corners waiting to cross the street, even when there's no traffic. So I will do the same. But this is Big Main Street. And if we went up about just a 5-minute walk or 10-minute walk, we'd be at Portage and Main. That is the center, that nexus of what was the Winnipeg General Strike in 1919. So anyone who studies history in this country is aware of that section. Now, I do feel like, sorry, it is a little noisy with the traffic. I'll stand back a little bit here. But I always feel the real need to share with everyone how fascinating I find Winnipeg to be. I know that Winnipeg doesn't get a lot of positive press in terms of tourism, but as an educational center, it is fascinating. Needless to say, the zoo is famous because the rescue polar bears are there. And this is the gateway to go up to Churchill, Manitoba, which is where people go to see bears. And then in the summertime, they go up and they actually swim or kayak with beluga whales, which is pretty cool. Now, the bear story is a complicated and sad one. And Tara and I are just working out when we're going to try and take you to the bears. Probably will be Mother's Day, I think, though. Just because, unfortunately, I don't have a lot of time otherwise. Right. We're going to go into the Via Station over here. So let's hope that the signal holds. Now, I know it held last year when Hago still existed, so we'll see if it holds in here. So this place is, you've never seen a whale in a kayak. Good point, Martine. So this is a fabulous station, and it's much bigger than a city of this size would have. But of course, when it was built, they intended on this being this great, powerful city in the center of the continent, right? Competing with Chicago. Look at this. This is my Moses moment. So, and here we are. Look at this fabulous station. And it's nice and quiet, although you can take a train from Toronto or from Edmonton. And in fact, if I just curve around for a second, you can see the images. There's the train going up into, it's going into Jasper up there, and there's Vancouver. That's Jasper again. So there are all the images, and you can take via across the country. And is the train running again to Churchill, or is that ended?
I'm not sure.
No, I have a funny feeling it isn't, yeah. So you only get up to Churchill now by flying, which is really sad. I never did take the train, but I always thought what a neat thing to do. So Churchill is a port. It's only about 800 permanent people. Look at this. Let's hope there's no glass here.
I know. It freaks me out.
It was. I remember a guy at university walking up with a big drink and he hit this clean glass, but he laughed. It was the funniest thing. So we'll come down here. I love these plaques over here. So I get a sense of the construction. Once again, this huge sort of empire construction down through here. 1911, right on Broadway. And this was the junction, of course, of the continent through here. And so whether you were on, well, it became Canadian National in 1914 when Grand Trunk went bankrupt. But of course, Canadian Pacific came through. And look at this, 1910, thousands of people moving into this city. Boy, oh boy, were they not ready for winter at that time. And of course, people came in. The waves of migrations into this city is just fascinating. So to give you some of the demographics, so a city of under 1 million, it has the largest, now these are per capita, so the largest indigenous population, hands down, of any city in North America. It has the largest Filipino population as well, huge German population, and then of course about 80,000 French speakers because it is a bilingual city, and we'll be looking across at Saint Boniface. And I almost feel like I should be doing, oh, did they, Sarah? Sarah just said that in the Amazing Race thing, they took the train to Churchill, so it must be running again. That is really good to know. Thank you for pointing out. Look at this, World War I, of course, the junction. There are monuments where I live. Little Bankhead, which used to be a town right near Banff, doesn't exist anymore, coal mining. We still have a war memorial where 8 young men lost their lives. They would have taken the trains here up to Montreal, and they would have gotten on a ship and gone off. You imagine what that was like. So here's 1916 out here. And then that would have been a lovely... because we can't have it here because Tara is going to France. Although really on the 30th, I'm getting on a cruise in Southampton and sailing around the UK. So we'll be nearly there to party together. So let's come on through, and we're coming into the area of the Forks. If anyone's going to do a trip in Winnipeg, you have to come out to the Forks. And this is where we get one of those ta-da moments of one of the most impressive buildings in this whole country. Look at that right up there, ladies and gentlemen. The Canadian Museum for Human Rights. And this is where I'll be spending a lot of my day on Saturday, particularly. They're doing workshops there. I know some of the people who are coming on this, and I'm really looking forward to it. One, I remember, wasn't very sympathetic to Indigenous history, so I'm really looking forward to looking at the expression on his face as he learns all about the history of genocide in this country. So interesting conversations to have. But we're gonna, gosh, it's such a perfect day. We'll go cut around by the Forks, and then we can, let's go this way. We'll make our way around, because then we're going to, hi Lynn, nice to see you here. Because then we're gonna meet Tara's daughter, which is really fun. And we're gonna have some lunch. And then this afternoon, apparently I have to do some work, but it's totally overrated. I love this old gate right through here. Now, of course, all the trains come together. I don't think we have a train at the moment. In fact, I will just curve around for a second here, because you have trains that are coming in from the south and the west and the east, and this is the main junction point. Remember, we're only about an hour north of the U.S. border, would you say?
Yeah.
About an hour, yeah. Hour north, but then it's North Dakota. The sky, Michelle, it is just... I've already been out walking this morning. I woke up early. I had a work call, but then I came out and just did a huge loop around. And it's just so beautiful. And as I say, for me, this is such a wonderful experience. We need to send this video to Tourism Manitoba, because it's so gorgeous. And I've always come here in the winter because tourism tends to be around the polar bears, right? Look at this plaque up here. For good forever. Canada's first community foundation was established in Winnipeg in 1921. So huge booster tradition. I've introduced the concept of boosterism previously, but boosters were the early settlers in these cities who would try and promote their city. And in Western Canada, it was almost to our detriment because the cities competed against each other. Winnipeg, Saskatoon, Calgary, Edmonton were trying to attract people. This is why we've always been so pro-immigration in this country, because you had the basis of a strong economy. What you didn't have was critical mass. Now, all that noted, oh, hey, Tova, nice to see you. Oh, is it your birthday, Tova? Hey, well, if it's your birthday, then we have to sing to you. Gens de pays, c'est à ton tour de te laisser parler d'amour. Hi there, Tova. I'm going to be here for the next few days, so maybe we can try and catch up at some point. Lovely to see you here. And yes, your city is putting on a smile, and it's lovely to have you sticking your head in saying hi to us on your birthday. Now, of course, as we are here at the Museum of Human Rights, everyone is so polite with the cars. Look at this, gorgeous. So this is the Trans Pride flag, and it's important to show this flag off this day more than most because of all these just horrible laws being passed in some of those southern states in the US right now. I know that most people don't believe in it, but all this culture war probing at people's lives, we need to remember that when you come to a museum like this, we're talking about human rights. And if we do talk about pretty good people, here's a pretty nice one. I felt so sorry for Gandhi in the winter because he was so cold, but he's having a great time. He's dressed for the weather now. But there we are. Hi, Jolene. So yes, I love that flag out there. Do you know, I was saying to Tara today when I came and walked around out here, I was actually seeing things that I've never seen before because it's always covered in snow. But the green is just coming out. But this museum, of course, it was the Asper Foundation that seeded the money for this. Izzy Asper was a Canadian media leader and obviously part of the very vibrant Jewish community here as well, and a good person. I'm so glad that this is the one big museum in Canada that's outside of Ottawa, and I think that's really significant as well. And the fact that it's in sort of the heart of the southern part of the country seems very appropriate. It is just gorgeous. So we'll wander up to the bridge and we want to show you the Red River, and then we can loop around to the Assiniboine and make it over to the Forks. It's just a treat on a day like today. It's just so beautiful.
I know.
And it's not, and there's no, I actually called Tara before to see if the bugs had come out yet.
Not yet.
But not yet, which is gorgeous.
Perfect time.
So here's a flame, and it's actually on a traditional drum over here. The amount you could spend, well, we can spend a whole day doing different monuments down in this area. Watch your step. So have a look over here. What can we do to respect each other? The sculpture tells the story of brotherhood between the benevolent spirit and the wolf. Look at this. I mean, this is, and you really do think some basic respect is just a really, really good way to move forward. And I want to come and show you. See, this stone, for example, was under snow last time I was here.
Oh.
So this is one that I did not know was here. So I've already sent pictures of it to the kids that I had here when I was here last time. So this is honoring the survivors of the Indian residential schools. That is the Cree language written there, and then English and French. So feel free, please. It'd be nice if there's no bugs this year. Please feel free to take a picture of that and feel free to share it. I don't know how clear it's coming through, but this is very, very important. And like obviously for the 2 years that I've known many of you, I think it's been a process for me as well as someone from settler heritage in this country. Now Finn has Indigenous heritage in Australia, but I have none in this country, and my family were settler, and I have to be so totally honest about the fact that I indisputably grew up around that sort of racism, and it's important to take ownership. It's not just acknowledging the past, although that's a step, and it's terrible when people deny it, but it's also asking that question, where do we go from here? Well, slowly but surely, we're finally building, and Winnipeg to me is the essence of this renaissance in Indigenous culture because, of course, you have this substantial population. You cannot ignore the voting population of Indigenous people in Winnipeg, and that makes it just so important. Now that bridge, why don't we walk just up to the bridge a bit, but we'll stay on this side. We can go out on the bridge a little bit. We can walk. You okay walking along here?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is nice. I feel like I want to say that what we're walking along was once train tracks, but I cannot promise that that's true. But I feel like it is.
Going this way?
Yeah. I'm not sure. It's just all these bricks down here. So I don't know, but we're looking across. If we were to cross the river, and I might try in the next couple of days to do a short tour over by Fort Gibraltar, which was the trading fort, and that's where I was at the Festival du Voyageur, which I believe I've already put up on YouTube as a replay. So, but that was just so much fun, except for it was just so cold that it was really on the limit. And now today, I think the high is 22 or 23, and it's sort of mildly humid, but not, yeah. So now this is all of Western Canada, right? We say autumn is our loveliest weekend, and spring rains a bit, and then we have winter and summer. But we've just hit this perfect little window here. Isn't this a nice bridge? So if we went across the bridge, we would be over into Saint-Boniface, the French-speaking area. And literally, when I do go over there, I literally say bonjour to people, allô, instead of hi. And I'll be having dinner there tomorrow night, which is fun. But here is the mighty Red River. Now, this river does flood. I mean, it really floods. And in fact, it gives us the name, which Tara reminded me this morning, that Winnipeg means muddy waters. I think you're not going to have a big flooding year from the look of things. A lot of the snow's melted off. But the rivers are nice and high. And of course, we're very close to the Assiniboine. So this is what we call the Forks. And it's where they come together. But you can see in the distance. Now, when I was here last winter, we toured. Hey, Janice, sorry, I didn't see you there. It is lovely. See the great big muddy river? But it is just lovely. And that is the remains of the old St. Boniface Cathedral. That is actually a ruin in there. But you have the old monastery, convent over the right. That was the start, of course, of the Grey Nuns, les Sœurs Grises. I think I've told you this story before, but it is a story worth telling. I will tell you, Martine. But the Grey Nuns are the one order of nuns that were born in Montreal, born in Canada. And the Sœurs Grises in Old French means the tipsy nuns or the drunk nuns.
Really?
They brewed beer.
Huh.
Yeah, they brewed beer in order to finance their work. Now, the red ribbons are really important. And we're going to go and talk about that at a different place. But just on May 5th is now the National Day of Acknowledgement of missing and murdered Indigenous women. So it's an extremely heavy subject. I agree, Christine. Tolerance is just a step towards inclusivity. I totally agree. But these are monuments. The numbers are around 4,000 women of principally Indigenous history that have disappeared in this country, and the government and the police have done very little. And it's a conversation that is going on and on. We're talking about modern Canada, often considered in these modern days to be the most liberal country in the world. Yet we are letting our young women disappear at a shocking number. And it's important to acknowledge it. And I'm very glad that this city has taken now a leadership role, because this was the essence, of course, of so much separation and racism for a long period of time. So it's not right, it's not fixed, but we're having these conversations and say that's a start. Now, if you've joined me, hey, Rosie, it's so true. If you've joined me on tours in Canmore, Alberta, you've probably seen this map over on the right here. This is the Great Trail across Canada. And this is where you can really see that Winnipeg is the heart of the country. You'll see that Edmonton over in Alberta is a junction point, so you can come down. That's where the trains go up that way and through to Jasper, down past Calgary into Banff, where I live. But you'll notice the one little bit of road up there in Iqaluit, no road access to Nunavut, way up north. But this was, except for tiny little Fort Garry, this was all the Northwest Territories in the middle. I talked so much about that history. And here's a bit of an aerial view. We should maybe finish up top at the viewpoint. It's such a, yeah, I'm going to make Tara climb all the stairs again today.
Maybe the elevator's
maybe the elevator. Well, Jolene, I'm glad it's getting news in the U.S. By the way, there's the Vimy Memorial over there on the right. At the end of this month, I'm going to be in the beaches in Normandy. But that's the Vimy Memorial that they often say was the birth of Canada as a nation, the 7,500 wounded or killed in one day at battle for a pointless war. Oh, golfers running all around, and the squirrels are all out. You have to be careful, by the way, if you come to the Canadian prairies, see all these gopher holes? Be very careful where you're walking, because you can actually get your foot caught in one. And it really can, and it's a big issue for horses as well. So the kids are all out picnicking. It's not a weekend. It must be a school outing of some sort.
Yeah,
which is
there
lovely.
was a bunch at the museum.
Oh, a bunch of, yeah, of course they're having a museum visit. I think it must be wonderful for students here to have access to that museum. So we should probably just come in and see this monument over on the right, because this is run by Parks Canada. Ashlyn, I do think respect. I mean, you know, years ago, I used to wear a badge that was celebrating the Canadian Constitution, and it says unity and diversity. You know, we don't all have to be the same, but it's that old saying that, you know, my rights end where your rights begin, you know, or in a more abrupt way, where the fist begins, you know, it ends. So, so here is the meeting place right here. So this is the monument to the meeting place, and it is lovely to see. And the 6,000 years of history at the junction of these rivers. I know the reflection's a little bit hard to see, but I did want to just come around here for a second. You can see there's the hotel in the distance where we started our walk this morning. There's the Fort Garry up there in the distance. Isn't it fabulous to see? I mean, there's just so much around here. But I'll just loop around and show you this monument here with all these great symbols on it. It's just gorgeous. So this is the Forks Historic District, and I really do hope that more and more Canadians as well come and acknowledge or come and discover what Winnipeg has. I think Winnipeg on its own is worth a solid 3 days. You know, and I'm not sure I would say that about Calgary, for example, and I'm not putting Calgary down, but Winnipeg itself, there's that extra 100 years of history. So we'll just come up and show you the sign here for the Forks and the Red River and the Assiniboine. So feel free to take a picture there. And then, of course, because we're in Parks Canada jurisdiction, there's our famous red chairs as well. Aren't they fun to see? Yeah, actually, why don't we walk? We'll walk over here and we'll walk around to where we see the Assiniboine River, and then we'll head into the market. So that's the thing. So Sandra said to me just the other day, and I know Sandra's just had a 20-day wonderful exploration in Western Canada, and then said, and I'm not, you know, I don't think you said anything. Hey, salut, Ariel. I don't think you said anything out of line. Said, I just heard that Winnipeg's flat and boring, and people say this. Winnipeg is fascinating. It is flat as a pancake. I mean, you can watch your dog run away for 2 days out here, and it's all, of course, very rich farmland. But because it's a small population, it's very culturally intense and diverse. And one forgets that. It's funny, after my last trip here, I'm going to watch out for these gopher holes. Yeah. But after my last trip, I was chatting with a couple of friends back home who had been here as well. Hey, it's Chloe here. Nice to see you, Chloe. Chatted with a couple of friends. They said, you forget till you come back to Winnipeg that you sit down in a restaurant or a cafe here and you're likely to hear 4 or 5 different languages. I mean, you've got that whole Mennonite culture as well, you know, another old, big Germanic populations going way back. And of course, this very, very vibrant historic Jewish community here. And then say the Filipinos who came a bit more recently, the French who have been here. The Ukrainian, of course, yeah, massive Ukrainian population. And it is the other statistic about Winnipeg that fascinates me is it's the most diversified economy of any major Canadian city, insofar as no one single industry dominates it. Obviously agriculture, and have the grain exchange, which is very important here. But also they say that Winnipeg is effectively the birthplace of Canadian aviation, which is in many ways the birthplace of the aviation industry in the world today. Even though, look at the light standard in the water. This is how the rivers come up, but it's a long way up before it starts flooding. So really no issue down this time of year. I think you're gonna have an easy go of it this year, but there probably wasn't enough snow in the winter. Now, what is, Tara, the coldest day you can remember ever?
The polar bears.
The polar bears with me. Oh, that was cold, wasn't it?
Oh.
The battery held for us, though.
It did.
We were lucky. Well, we were able to go inside, so that was fun. I did camp in Yukon once at -50, but that was so bone dry. Whereas here, even at that -40, you still kind of feel the humidity here. This, I have to say, is about as lovely and gentle as a climate could be. This is part of the old train yards over on the right-hand side. So this whole area was the kind of urban renewal. Obviously, this is the focus of tourism in the city, as it should be. The Forks Market is great fun. I already know where I'm going to eat. Oh. That little Argentine place. Yeah. It's funny, I travel so much that I'm a creature of habit when it comes to food. If I find something I like, I tend to focus on it. Why don't we cut up through here? Because I love this monument. It's the old original roundhouse out here where they would have probably turned train engines around. You know, very common. Do you, Sandra? Yeah, it is. I go back to places that I know and like. Now, interestingly enough, years ago when I wrote, I think, the first edition of Working and Living in Canada, I happened to be here up at the Bears, and I borrowed some really good camera equipment. And one of those books, I have pictures from inside the Forks Market, and really it was brand spanking new about then, you know, early 2000s. I can't remember. Yeah, but it's awfully neat. See the old trains coming out of the old station over here on the right. There's also a children's museum in here, which I haven't been in, but because I'm not a child, because of a time factor. But we do have another important monument here. Oh, there we go. Yeah, hear the trains in the distance. You might have heard them. It's fun to watch them coming over. But right up here, this is the Forks. The walkway down below is closed because the water's so high. But this is where the two rivers come together. Just like if you've been on a tour with me in Calgary, of course, it's where the Elbow and the Bow come together. And these were the journey points. And look at this. They've turned this into a lovely monument down in here. And then you have all of the market area. Yeah, I can hear a train in the distance. I don't know will we see it. But this is, again, all part of Parks Canada. And here you can see Anishinaabe language written right over here. Part of the Assiniboine language group. Pretty cool to see this. This is where we are. And remember, the Assiniboine River last winter was the longest skating rink on planet Earth because sadly the one in Ottawa did not freeze. So
be careful of those geese.
Yeah, here come the geese. This is the Canadian Air Force. But this is a monument here to Martine's earlier question to the missing and murdered Indigenous women. Here is a commemorative monument, and it's pretty important in honor of Manitoba's missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls from the Ojibwe, Cree, Oji Cree, Dakota, Dene, Inuit, and Métis nations. Today and always let us remember they were mothers, daughters, sisters, cousins, and aunts. And at all times, and forever are loved and honored and cherished. So that is pretty significant, ladies and gentlemen. And once again, I always have to say, you know, as a male of settler origin, I have to do my best to honor and respect our friends and sisters in our society here. So there is the bridge over the Assiniboine, and say the skating rink. And we didn't skate this winter. Say I was here with Blackfeet Treaty 7 people, and our plan was I took them out for a good long walk here, but it was minus 40, and we're just like, those kids are amazing how much they resist the cold, but at some point you don't want to take any risks. So there's a train going over. There's a grain train just moving across, but also those ones with the metal sides on them, they're carrying automobiles. And so that's going south, and I don't know if it's turning west or east, whether it's heading out towards Vancouver or heading back towards Toronto and Montreal. So now I know we're having a nice long tour, everyone, but it's such a perfect day that I'm going to be very glad to have this as a memory. I will ask, please make a point of hitting that like button. I'm using this streaming service, so I don't see the same things that I do when I'm just on YouTube, but the picture is so perfectly clear that it's all working today, so I'm thrilled about that. But if you can make sure to like it, and then even on your own social media, share some of these if you can. Have a look at this, Treaty Relations Commission of Manitoba. It was interesting, actually, the fact that Sandra's here. We were talking about treaties the other day. So this is Treaty 1 in the west. The treaties were established as the trains moved west. You can see the Assiniboine out here. There is a big, full, muddy river down there now. Look at that. So we are gonna make Tara hoof it up to the top there. That's where we're gonna go up. It's great, isn't it, Rosie? So we are going to, so if you could just sprint ahead, tell me if it's a nice view. But we'll go on up. This was a skating rink.
That's her over there.
Oh, is that your girl over there?
Yeah.
Oh, there's, that's so nice. Yeah, so Tara, you have 14 children, you said? No, you have 3. 4. Lucky you. We bought a TV, so I only have 1. So let's see, this should be open there. So we're gonna go on upstairs. We're gonna, by the way, the place I'm gonna eat is that Simon's Steaks, just so you know. Ooh, well, see, I'm not going to take it because it might cut out. Oh, okay, I'll race you. Okay, Tara's going to meet me up there. Come on up, everyone. I need to show you outside here. I might even trim this last section when I have a chance so that you get a full view of this fascinating city here. Cindy, I do not recommend passenger service in the west of Canada. The distances are too long and they cannot keep to a schedule. I do, on the other hand, recommend taking trains between Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal. Absolutely. And in fact, you can usually, for the same price as a flight, travel first class, which means good Wi-Fi, you get a little meal, lots of legroom, and you see more of the country. So that's my answer to that. If you ever want to do the Via Rail right across the country, you're welcome to, but take lots of Valium, or I guess cannabis. Here's the growing city down through here. Some of the history outside, just trying to adjust. Not adjusting that well. So one more, and I can get up and outside. And I believe that Tara has beaten me up here. Hey everyone, there you go. Hi there. All right, so you are? Bailey and? Patrick. No way. Jesus. Come on out, everyone. Thanks, Bailey. Look at this, everyone. There. Now Bailey and Patrick, you're going to be immortalized. So there's the Assiniboine. So you both grew up here? Patrick, yeah. Parlez français un peu?
Nope.
No? You're a tall fella. You got what, German roots or?
Irish.
Oh, Jesus, there's hope. Just hope for the world. I was in Ireland 5 days ago.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So we're looking out towards the hospitals in the distance. Hey, Mary Lou, nice to see you here. Lovely to have you back. So there's the train. Oh, there's a coal train. Or some coal cars. By the way, the heaviest trains on the Canadian tracks are coal trains. It takes up to 4 kilometers to stop them. Lovely view now of the Fort Garry back in the distance, where we where we started our walk today. Isn't that just fantastic? And there's the big train station we've come through. You get a sense now how flat it is around here. But do remember that down here becomes the longest skating rink in the world when the one in Ottawa doesn't freeze. Really spectacular view. I don't know, can't really get, I guess I have to go inside to give you the museum. And then we're looking over to Saint-Boniface and Fort Gibraltar out in the distance. So I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're gonna call it a day because we've gone on and we have a lot of eating and drinking to do. A lot of us. So go on, give them all there we are. So you see, there's everyone. So now you're gonna be on YouTube forevermore. So you two are gonna be famous. Yeah. What do you do for work?
I'm a cook.
You're a cook.
She's also going to university.
You're going to, that's right.
Yes.
And what are you studying?
I'm going to education.
Education. Lovely.
Yeah.
And are you doing something?
I'm at university.
Yeah.
I'm doing environmental studies.
Environmental studies. Yeah. Perfect. We need a bit of that. Alberta's on fire. We need, yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, listen, thanks for coming and visiting. What a gorgeous city. Please feel free to pass this around. Thank you for your support. There's a link, of course, in the description there. But isn't it nice to see everyone? Thanks, Kathy. It's a big hug. Peace and love to everyone from the Peg. So now, we always, at the moment, you know, when we sign off, it's always really abrupt. So wanted to tell you just a little personal truth about Tara here, because of course she has a big birthday coming up and is going to France for that birthday. Oh, hold on, my screen is going on me. Oh, maybe. Oh, come on, go down. There we are. Let me see. It should be. I don't know. There we go. So I just have to tell you about the very first time